Thank you for tuning in to another episode of That Sports Podcast. As always, I am your host, Brandon B. This week we got some good stuff to talk about. Starting off with UFC Fight Night this weekend, Gane versus Tuivasa. That was a really great fight. Really great card, really great UFC event. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't as great as Edwards versus Usman. But it was still great and good in its own right. So there's three fights in particular that really, stuck out to me throughout the whole card. These are main card fights. The first one was Buckley versus Imavov. And there was a lot of tension going into the fight and stuff like that, and you could see that tension during the fight. Imavov had some very bad intentions for Buckley, but overall, I just wasn't impressed with Imavov. I really wasn't. I mean, he did enough to win the fight. But what really saved him in the fight was the fact that he had a longer reach advantage. He was just a longer fighter. I mean, he had Buckley in some compromising positions. Yeah, he landed some good shots, but Buckley was there from start to finish. Buckley wasn't able to land as many punches and stuff, but he did, land some good blows, and he did fight a good fight. I mean, I was impressed with him being able to survive some of those desperate positions and things like that. But overall, Imavov, to me, just didn't really wow me with his performance. I mean, like I said, he used his length very well. He used the distance and stuff very well. But overall, I just wasn't impressed. I mean, it literally just was a height advantage fight. That was it. Buckley had to throw, 3, 4, 5, 6 punches before he could even get close enough to Imavov to, land a single blow. And when you have that kind of, when you have to do that, you're expending a lot more energy. You're having to, try to be a lot more creative with your strikes to land them. Overall, like I said, the fight was pretty decent. But like I said, I just wasn't impressed with Imavov. I know he's a great fighter, but in this instance, I mean, it looked like he was basically just trying to keep Buckley from getting on him. You know what I mean? Like, that was pretty much it. And when, and he did capitalize on some positions and stuff like that, but it wasn't that great. Whitaker versus Marvin Vettori is the next fight. Whitaker was the clear winner from start to finish. The first round, it was kind of a back and forth round. Whitaker took it, by an edge. But after that first round, Whitaker kind of just ran away with the fight. He dominated Vettori with the striking and stuff like that. Vettori tried a couple of takedowns that, Whitaker was able to just kind of, shrug off and stuff like that. I think, Whitaker was just the more technical striker. He was just a better, well-rounded fighter than Vettori. And that's not to take anything away from Vettori. He's a great fighter. I think that, his biggest weakness right now is his technical striking ability. He was just outclassed by Whitaker, in the counter, in getting to the punch first, no pun intended. And, he was more effective in the counter punching and stuff like that. If you looked at Vettori's face and Whitaker's face, Vettori's face was busted up. Whitaker didn't even look like he got touched, really. I think if moving forward, Vettori really needs to focus on technical striking and counter punching. I think he would have done well, easing off some of that pressure and letting Whitaker come to him, and counter punching and stuff like that, giving Whitaker a little bit of a different look. I get it. Vettori's a very high paced fighter, very pressure fighter and stuff like that. He's in your face from start to finish, and he's got a head like granite. But at the same time, absorbing those punches, only loses you points and stuff like that. Continuing to march forward and not land anything, and being unsuccessful in those exchanges, they lose you points. So I think it's really important for Vettori moving forward to really improve his striking, really work on mixing it up and changing those levels and things like that, and being a lot more technical and clever with his striking and stuff like that, and those takedowns and mixing them in. But yeah, like I said, overall it was a great fight. I think at this point, for Whitaker, if he doesn't get a title shot against Adesanya, I think it's time. I think a move up to 205 to test the waters would be a good move for him. Because him and Adesanya have been, kind of just going through the ranks of the middleweight division. And at this point, there aren't a whole lot of challengers left for either of those guys. So, I think, moving up to 205 would be a good move for Whitaker. He's always just seemed like a bigger fighter to me. And I know that, some people, I've heard that, he doesn't do these really crazy weight cuts to get to the middleweight fight, the middleweight fighting weight. So, it actually works, it might work into his favor to, bulk up a little bit, and get into that 205 division and go in there and get a fight under his belt. That will further increase his UFC stock. You know what I mean? He goes up to 205. He goes in there. He dominates at 205 at that 205 fight. Then the UFC has to give him another fight against Izzy, or they have to give him another big fight at 205. You know what I mean? Like, that just increases his stock. Whereas if he fights somebody else in the middleweight division aside from Adesanya, I just don't see it being any benefit to him. And the third fight between him and Izzy is going to be definitely inevitable. It only makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, at this point, after Izzy's next title fight, I think it's definitely a Whitaker and Izzy 3 if Izzy wins, if Izzy retains his belt. You know what I mean? If Izzy loses the belt, obviously Whitaker's should be the next in line for a chance to get that belt. But like I said, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the matchmakers at UFC have to say about it and what they're going to do about it. So the last fight was the main event, Gane versus Tuivasa. Tuivasa got KO'd in the third round. Gane just looked phenomenal, from start to finish in the fight. When I was looking at the fight, I felt Gane won the first round. Tuivasa, in my opinion, won that second round just by a little bit. He did a little bit more, especially with that knockdown of Gane. He just did a little bit more in that round, in my opinion. If he could have finished that fight when he knocked down Gane. I believe it was the second round. Maybe it was early in the third round, but I believe it was the second round when Tuivasa knocked him down with that big punch. It was a very back and forth fight. They went to blows and stuff like that. But again, the reach advantage is what really set Gane ahead of Tuivasa. Tuivasa was just eating a bunch of punches. On his way in. He was also, eating body blows, body kicks. Gane was just ruthless to the body. There were several times in that fight where, Gane just massacred his rib cage with that left leg kick, with that left body kick. And, you could tell that Tuivasa was really hurt. And there's only so many you can take of that. You know what I mean? Like, it might hurt the first time, it might only hurt the second time, but the third time, it goes from hurting to stopping your body in its tracks. You know what I mean? So, and that's what happened with Tuivasa. He just, he was sneaking up under the elbow just enough to catch that rib, catch the lower midsection and stuff like that. And I mean, that's what really did him in. Tuivasa, I think, really needs to work on being a little bit more, alert and aware and how to defend those sorts of those kicks and stuff like that, because it just looked like he didn't have any answer for them. I mean, he couldn't get out of the way of them. It didn't even look like he was trying to catch them or anything like that. I mean, he would have done well to try and counteract those, or at least try to catch one, so that way he could get in and land some big blows on Gane and stuff like that. But Gane is a phenomenal fighter. And he said that he doesn't want to fight. He wants to fight, obviously there are some big names in the division. He would love to fight John Jones if he comes, the winner of John Jones, Stipe Miocic, if that fight happens. He obviously wants the gold strap. He's already made it known that he doesn't want to fight Curtis Blaydes. He said it doesn't make sense to him. And I believe that, because Curtis Blaydes, I believe, is still in the top 5. But let's be honest, it would be more of a benefit for, Blaydes than it would be for Gane. Gane would have more to lose in that fight. So I do believe that, it wouldn't be that big of a thing. I think, a John Jones fight would make sense. If Stipe Miocic and John Jones do fight, I do believe that, John Jones could fight Gane. Ngannou's going to be out until 2023 apparently. So We may see Gane fight for an interim title. I don't think it makes sense for John Jones. If John Jones beats Stipe Miocic for that interim title, I don't think that makes sense. John Jones has been out of action for such a long time. And, I feel like he should at least fight 2 times in the heavyweight division before he gets a title shot, because there's a lot of guys in that division like Curtis Blades who are sitting in the top 5 who should be given a title shot if there's someone coming up, or given a shot at that interim belt if it is coming up. Like I said, I would really like to see John Jones get back into the ring. I'm really hoping that they can make that Stipe Miocic fight work, because I believe that'll be a phenomenal fight. It'll be a good test for John Jones coming back and moving up a weight class. And I feel like, John Jones is really going to be good at light heavyweight, simply because he's taken the time to prepare for his move up to light heavyweight. I mean, John Jones fought at light heavyweight, so now moving up to heavyweight, he's had to pack on some meat and everything like that, and that takes some getting used to. When you're physically heavier, it can sap your energy and sap your stamina. So, John Jones had a lot of time to prepare and train with that new weight and build up that weight. So I think it'll be a great matchup, between him and Miocic. If John Jones does win that fight, I do believe that he should fight Gane. Maybe not for an interim title, but I do believe that they should fight. And as far as an interim title fight goes, I mean, I don't even know who's at the top of the heavyweight division right now that would make sense to put an interim title into play. But we'll see. Like I said, the UFC matchmakers have a lot to do with that. So J.R. Smith says that he and other players like Isaiah Thomas, I think Joe Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Nick Young, and a few other players, J.R. Smith said that, they're being blackballed. They can still play and stuff like that, but they're being blackballed and they still got skill. And in my opinion, I don't believe that J.R. Smith or any of those guys are being blackballed. I really don't. I just think that, when you get to a certain age, your value as a professional athlete declines, especially when you've always been a supporting cast member. Like, as much as J.R. Smith, as talented as a basketball player as J.R. Smith is and was, he was always a rotational player. He was always a role player, a positional player. He was not somebody that a team was looking to sign to carry their franchise. He was not a player that teams needed to sign to get their franchise over the hump. He was basically a guy that could come in and get the job done, like a sixth man, you know what I mean? Like Iguodala. Like when Golden State signed Iguodala and kept Iguodala around, Iguodala knew he's in the twilight of his career, right? So he accepted his position as a role player. He accepted the salary that came with that, and that's why he was so successful. He had such longevity in his career. That's why a lot of older players who are still in the league are having longevity in their careers, because they accept the fact that they're a position player now or a role player now. You know what I mean? Coming off the bench, maybe just playing, getting a couple minutes here, getting significantly less minutes during the games and stuff like that. And they're willing to take less money because they're not the main attraction for the game. You know what I mean? And so it's more believable for me that these NBA teams don't want to sign guys like J.R. Smith and Isaiah Thomas and the rest of these guys that J.R. Smith named, because they're asking for too much money. Like I said, to be supporting cast members, they're just asking for too much money. They're asking for too much money, or they're asking for too long of a contract, especially when these guys are getting up there in age. Once you start getting, up into your 30s as a professional athlete, a lot of teams worry about your energy. I mean, not your energy, but your stamina levels, your fitness levels, your durability. You know what I mean? Once you start climbing over 30, you're more prone to have injuries. You know what I mean? It's a long season. There's 83 games in a professional season and stuff like that. How many people over 30 can really keep up and stuff like that? And I'm not saying that 30 is old, but your body is starting to see some of that wear and tear. I mean, a lot of these athletes have been playing this sport since they were children. You know what I mean? So you're talking about starting basketball when they're like 5 or 6 years old, and now they're 30. That's 25 years of basketball. with at least, half of that 25 years being competitive. All the extra workouts and stuff like that, the practices, the training sessions and everything, that puts a lot of wear and tear on your body, and not everybody's body can handle and hold up to that. So when it boils down, what it boils down to me is like, what has J.R. Smith really contributed to a playoff championship winning team? What is J.R. Smith and the rest of these guys? I mean, as far as I know, Isaiah Thomas, like I said, he was a good point guard and stuff like that, but he wasn't lighting the NBA on fire. He wasn't, winning titles like LeBron or winning titles like Kobe. He wasn't winning all these titles and stuff like that. Like, like I said, he had an impressive career. He made it to the NBA, and just because these guys can still ball, like, I'm sure Michael Jordan can still hoop a little bit. Even at 50 something going on 60 years old, I'm sure Michael Jordan can still hoop a little bit. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's still got a little bit of that competitive drive. And if he was in his 40s, if Michael Jordan was still in his 40s right now, do I believe, like, if Michael Jordan had played during the era of Kobe Bryant, do I believe he would have retired when he did, or do I believe he would still be retired? No, he probably would have retired, then came back out of retirement in his in his late 30s, early 40s, and stuff like that, and then played a little bit longer. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Michael Jordan, if given the opportunity, Michael Jordan could still hoop. There are a lot of guys out there who are older in age and stuff like that who can still hoop. They can still ball, but that doesn't mean that they can keep up with the pace of the NBA. Do I believe that Michael Jordan could go out here and cook these guys, these guys half his age nowadays? I mean, I'm sure he'd be decent, but do I believe that he'd be showing out like he did back when? No, I don't believe that at all. Do I believe he'd be putting up, 30 points a game? No. I believe he maybe put up like 15, 20, you know what I'm saying? Because he's still a big presence and everything. He still probably handled the ball, but he's probably moving a lot more like Shaq did his entire career. You know what I mean? Shaq was never a very fast or agile guy. He was just fucking big. He was big, and he used that to his advantage. That's why Shaq was such a dominating figure in the NBA. So, like I said, at the end of the day, I think J.R. Smith and the rest of those guys, if they came down, with their salary requirements or with their contract lengths and stuff like that, they might be able to find a team a little bit easier. But a lot of these guys want big money because they're trying to retire and stuff like that. And it's like, that's their choice. That's their choice. And it's not like some of the guys on that list didn't have an opportunity. The last time J.R. Smith played was in 2020, I believe. Isaiah Thomas, I believe, was on the roster last year. He didn't keep his spot. There are several other players that had opportunities and stuff like that. They just didn't make an impression. Nick Young had flashes of greatness, had flashes of great ability and stuff like that, but he was never really that consistent. Can he still ball? Sure. Does he ball at a level higher than than the average person? Yeah, definitely. He wouldn't have made it to the NBA otherwise. But like I said, a lot of these guys, they're asking for too much money, too much on the contract and stuff, too long of a contract and stuff like that, demanding too much, and that's probably why they're not in the league. And that to me is not being blackballed. That's just somebody not willing to shell out the money or keep you on the roster or have to be stuck with you for X, Y, and Z amount of years and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Especially when there are guys who are younger, who are more talented. I mean, think about it. There are tons of guys in the NBA right now who are far more talented than J.R. Smith. I mean, fucking Zion Williams came into the NBA and he had more hype and talent around him than J.R. Smith. So anyway, last topic, we're going to talk about some football here. The reports are saying that Tom Brady's marriage is the reason that he missed the, that 11 game, that training camp, and that him and Giselle are, at odds because of his decision to retire and unretire. The whole narrative sort of bothers me because, honestly, I just don't think it's anyone's business what's going on in Tom Brady's marriage. Like, I get we can speculate as to why, he missed training camp and stuff like that, but to me, it's not that big of a deal. Tom Brady is a veteran of football. He's been in the league for as long as I can fucking remember. I mean, as long as I've been a football fan, there's always been a Tom Brady, right? Like, I don't remember, like, as long as I've been following football, there's always been a Tom Brady. And I'm not talking about the days when I was younger and just, like, watched TV on football, you know what I mean? Like, when I've really been following football, like, keeping up with the stats and keeping up with the teams and, knowing players' names and, watching Super Bowls and stuff like that, like really becoming a fanatical fan, there's always been a Tom Brady. So him missing a couple of training camps and stuff like that, to me, isn't really a big story. You know what I mean? And now all of a sudden, people couldn't leave it alone enough, and now all of a sudden it's coming out that him and Giselle are at odds and stuff like that, and his marriage is the problem, is why he's missed the training camp and stuff like that. And to me, I mean, it's not anybody's business. The man has earned the right to some privacy. The man has shown that he's more than capable of missing some time and coming back and not missing a beat. I mean, he was out for an entire season with that knee injury, and then came back and didn't miss a beat. You know what I mean? Like he's always going to be Tom Brady, the phenomenal talent and stuff like that, regardless of what he's got going on or off the field. So at the end of the day, I think that people need to just leave it alone. People just need to leave it alone. That being said, I don't think Giselle. I don't think it's wrong for Giselle to be upset. I mean, for pretty much their entire time together in their relationship, Tom has been a pro athlete. So he's been on the road a lot, and she's had to be the one to take care of the kids and deal with the kids and stuff like that. And now that they're becoming a lot older and stuff like that, it's more critical for him to be a part of their lives more than just a video chat or, a Snapchat or something like that, video calls, voice chats and stuff like that. Like, he needs to be present. He needs to be there. And I'm sure that Giselle feels like, I'm sure if the reports are true and they are having some issues because he decided to unretire and come back for another season, I'm sure that Giselle, has some reservations about it, because, she's getting older too. She has things that she wants to do and stuff like that. She has ambitions and desires and stuff. And here she is, having to make sure the kids are taken care of. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she's taking care of the kids. I mean, she has to make sure, you know what I mean? Like, she could be hiring people to make sure that the kids are taken care of and getting to and from places. But it falls pretty much on her to make sure that stuff is getting done. You know what I mean? Make sure that she's doing the parental things in that relationship and stuff like that. And I'm sure it's hard for her. She's been doing it for so long. And I'm sure at some point she wants, I'm sure at some point she would like to have Tom involved in some of those processes and those decisions and stuff like that, going to those parent-teacher conferences and helping the kids with their homework and, making sure that they're eating right and stuff. I'm sure it would help to have his presence around a little bit more when raising those kids. So, I think people should, kind of mind their business on it. But at the same time, like, I think Giselle has every right to be upset if she is upset, but, there are ways to work around that kind of thing. It's not like Tom can't, join the team late, on a way when they travel. You know what I mean? Like, he has the money, and there's nowhere in the United States that you can't get, within a 12-hour flight, 16-hour flight. You know what I mean? Like, these people have tons of money, private planes and jets and stuff like that. So it's not like, he can't do that, can't fly the kids out to where he's at and stuff like that. They have money. So it's not like they can't figure out a way to work the situation out. And I hope they do work it out, because Tom and Giselle seem like a great couple. I always hated Tom Brady when he was with the Patriots because they just kept on fucking winning. You know what I mean? But after he left the Patriots, I really started to appreciate his greatness and who he is as a human being, as an individual and stuff like that. So I really hope that they do work that out. Because at the end of the day, Tom, like I said, Tom Brady's a great athlete. They seem like they have a great relationship. Giselle has been provided a great support system for him and stuff like that. And they seem like they have a really great life together and family life together. So I really hope that they work that out. And I do hope that, this last season for Tom, I really do hope that this is Tom's last season, right? Because we don't want to see Tom enter Brett Favre territory or, and when I say Brett Favre territory, Brett Favre's legacy was kind of tainted by his last couple seasons in the league where he didn't perform very well. His interception to touchdown ratios started to look a little ugly. Completion started to drop down and everything like that. You know what I mean? So I hope that this is Tom's last season, and I hope it does go well for him. I'm not necessarily saying that I hope he wins the Super Bowl. I mean, obviously, I hope they make a nice playoff run and he can ride off into the sunset with his head held high and stuff like that with no unanswered questions and stuff. If they do win a Super Bowl, big ups to Tom. I myself am a Giants fan. Now, if we were talking about Tom Brady being in the AFC, I hope they do get to the Super. I would say I hope they do get to the Super Bowl. But if I hope that Tom gets to the Super Bowl in the NFC, that means that the Giants ain't making it. And I know the Giants don't really have a chance to get into the Super Bowl this year. The Giants don't look all that great on paper. They don't seem like a team to me that's going to do very well. So at the end of the day, like I said, I hope that works out. Football season is coming. We do have a game coming up this week, I believe. Thursday night football. I believe it's the Bills and the Chargers, or the Bills and the Raiders, or not the Raiders, but the Bills and the LA Chargers, or the Bills and the Rams. One of those two LA teams. Should be a good game. Should be a good game. Should be a great way to start the season off. The Bills would look great last season. The Chargers and the Rams both look great last season. The Rams are just defending Super Bowl champs. So I mean, either of those matchups against either the Rams versus the Bills, or the Chargers versus the Bills, it's going to be a great matchup. Can't wait till the football season starts. Not really looking forward to seeing how the Giants do, but the season's going to roll on nonetheless. So hopefully we're pleasantly surprised. Anyway, that is my show for this episode. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Don't forget to stop by my website. My links are in my social medias on my link tree. Don't forget to stop there, maybe buy a That Sports Podcast t-shirt, or a XYZ Podcast t-shirt, or any other t-shirts I have available. Check out my eBay page. Do not forget that I also am looking for a new co-host for this podcast. So if you are interested, DM me on socials. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and follow me on my socials. That is it for me today, guys. Take it easy. Peace.